The Silent Neighbor, the true story of Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. He mowed his lawn every Saturday, sat in the front pew on Sunday mornings. He coached his son's sports team and kept his marriage intact for over 30 years. To the people of Park City, Kansas, Dennis Rader was a model citizen. But underneath that carefully constructed mask was something else. A compulsive killer. A man who stalked his victims for weeks, sometimes months. A man who wanted to be seen, even if it meant leaving behind bodies to be remembered. He called himself BTK. Bind, torture, kill. For 30 years, he terrorized a community. For 30 years, he sent letters, photos, puzzles taunting the police. And for 30 years, he lived among them. This is the story of how a husband, father, and city inspector became one of the most cold-blooded serial killers in American history, and how he was finally caught by his own pride. Chapter 1. The Otero Family. January 15th, 1974. Wichita, Kansas. The air was bitter. Schools had been delayed due to cold weather. At 8 a.m., 15-year-old Charlie Otero came home from school early, expecting to grab a bite and maybe warm up. What he found instead would never leave him. His parents, Joseph and Julie Otero, were dead. His 9-year-old brother, Joey, and 11-year-old sister, Josephine, all strangled, tied up, positioned. It wasn't a robbery. It was ritualistic, meticulous. And there was something else, a message, a note left in the house, signed only BTK Chapter 2. A killer emerges. BTK would later describe the Otero murders as his first project. He stalked them for weeks. He broke into the house with a hit kit, pre-made knots, tape, plastic. He took pleasure in control. Bind, torture, kill. He didn't just murder. He needed to watch. And it wasn't enough to do it. He wanted credit. So in 1978, he sent a letter to Cake TV. It read, "How many do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper? I am the same one who killed the Oteros, the couple on 13th Street, and Linda." He listed all of his crimes and signed it, the BTK Strangler. Chapter 3. The quiet years from 1974 to 1991. BTK killed 10 people, but in Bry. Between, he disappeared. No more letters, no more taunts, no more bodies. Just silence. The police believed he was either dead or had moved on. But Dennis Rader, he was still right there. He got married, had kids, served as president of his church council, and worked as a compliance officer, ironically enforcing city ordinances. He gave neighbors tickets for overgrown lawns. He cited a woman for having too many stray cats in her backyard. And he killed no one. But he never stopped thinking about it. Chapter 4. The return of BTK in 2004. On the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders, BTK returned. He mailed a letter to the Wichita Eagle. Enclosed was a copy of the Otero family's driver's license and a word puzzle. He told the police, "You'll find me in the clues." Investigators were stunned. This wasn't a copycat, this was him. He began sending packages, Barbie dolls posed like victims, souvenirs from crime scenes, hand-drawn maps, and Crow. Finally, a floppy disk. He asked police, "Can this be traced?" They said no. It was a lie. Chapter 5. Caught by metadata. When detectives analyzed the disk, they found it had been last edited at Christ Lutheran Church, registered to a man named Dennis Rader. They quietly surveilled him. Then they obtained a DNA sample from a pap smear taken from his daughter at a college clinic. It matched BTK's DNA perfectly. Chapter 6. The interrogation confession. When arrested, Rader didn't resist. In the interview room, he spoke calmly. He called his murders projects, referred to victims by code, explained everything with clinical precision. His motive? Control, fantasy, legacy. He said he couldn't stop thinking about it. Like an itch he had to scratch. Chapter 7. Inside BTK's mind, Dennis Rader sat in the interrogation room like he belonged there. No panic, no tears. When detectives asked why he stopped killing after 1991, his answer was simple. Life got busy. He'd become a father, a scout leader. He took pride in his job as a compliance officer. But the fantasies, the need to control, they never stopped. Rader described cubing out, compartmentalizing his life, his work, his family, his church, and his projects, the term he used for his murders. He would cube out his BTK side when it wasn't time to kill. In his confession, Rader detailed every murder. He showed no remorse, no hesitation. The Oteros, Shirley Vian, Nancy Fox, each victim described like items on a shopping list. Chapter 8. The hidden stash. When police searched Rader's home, they uncovered a chilling collection. Meticulous records, photographs, souvenirs from his victims. He kept binders documenting every crime, drawings of women in bondage, Polaroids of himself in masks, tied up, acting out his fantasies. This wasn't impulse. This was a life's work. Dennis Rader had built a museum to his crimes, hidden in plain sight. Chapter 9. The trial. In June 2005, Dennis Rader stood before the court. He pleaded guilty to all 10 counts of first-degree murder. But it wasn't a quiet proceeding. For over 90 minutes, Rader gave a clear, graphic, emotionless account of each killing. I would bind them, sometimes gag them, then proceed to torture and kill. His daughter sat in the courtroom, listening in horror. She'd lived her entire life unaware. His wife of over 30 years filed for immediate divorce. But Rader? He seemed almost relieved, like he'd been waiting to tell someone. Chapter 10. Despite his chilling courtroom confession, Rader remained disturbingly matter-of-fact. He spoke about each murder with the same detached tone one might use to describe running errands. When asked how he selected his victims, he called it factual ex, a term he borrowed from other serial killers. He claimed this dark force compelled him, though investigators believed it was simply a convenient excuse to mask the premeditation and manipulation he relished. The public's reaction was one of disbelief and betrayal. Neighbors, church members, and co-workers packed the courtroom, their faces pale, eyes wide with horror. Many of them had shared meals with Rader, attended services together, and trusted him with their children. Now, they watched as this familiar man described how he stalked, bound, and killed innocent people without a flicker of emotion. His words stripped away the mask he'd worn for decades, revealing the calculating predator beneath. Perhaps the most haunting moment of the trial came when surviving family members of the victims stood to give their statements. They faced Rader directly, describing the devastating impact of his crimes, how they lost not just loved ones, but peace, safety, and trust. Some wept openly. Others spoke through clenched jaws. But Rader, he remained stone-faced, offering only a brief rehearsed apology. Not for the victims, but for getting caught. Legacy of fear. The town of Wichita still carries the weight of BTK. A generation grew up locking their doors, looking over their shoulders, wondering if the man next to them could be a killer. And he was. Dennis Rader wasn't a monster in the shadows. He was a neighbor, a friend, a trusted figure. BTK showed us that the scariest killers aren't the ones you fear. They're the ones you never suspect. Outro. The final cell. Rader now spends 23 hours a day in a concrete cell. His letters to fans are controlled. His interviews limited, but he still dreams. In one rare interview, he admitted that if he'd never been caught, he would have killed again. He was planning another project, a woman, unknown, targeted. Even in his 60s, the itch hadn't gone away. It never would. And maybe that's the lesson BTK leaves behind. Evil doesn't always look like the monster in the movies. Sometimes it looks like the man mowing his lawn next door. Dennis Rader is now serving 10 consecutive life sentences at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. He will never walk free again. But his legacy still echoes, because Dennis Rader wasn't a shadow. He was a neighbor, a father, a husband. And the scariest truth about the BTK Killer is how normal he was. Because monsters don't always wear masks. Sometimes they wear a smile.